There we go. Let me see if it's working for her. Yeah, there you go. Mute it.
I'm dead.
All right, guys, we have it working now. Sorry about that. Some technical difficulties. You know, we're kind of new at this, but okay. So back to what we were saying. Basically, we were talking about the fact that a lot of, well, at least the three of us, Daisy, Rosa, and me, have shared the fact that we have all experienced not having enough self-love for ourselves, and to where it has actually impacted and affected our relationships. So basically, we think that one of the most important things is being able to have that love and care for yourself, to be able to also share that and give that to another individual. Damien, I see that you're on here. Do you have anything that you'd like to add to this?
Not yet. No, I couldn't hear you for a little bit, and I just
So
caught the last part of that.
no, yeah, I got you. Yeah, we were having a little bit of technical difficulties, but so basically, we were kind of saying, when the word relationship comes to mind, like what is the first thing that comes to mind when you hear that word? Relationship, just the word relationship.
Honestly, obsession.
You think obsession?
Yeah,
What do you mean by
that's like
that?
the first. That's like the first thing that comes to my mind because I think a lot of people are. I guess maybe I should say new relationships. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people they get into a new relationship and they're just obsessed. You know, like they want all that attention and like they're giving the attention too, but sometimes it's like, hey, like hold up,
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I feel like you know what do most people say when you start a relationship? It's like the honeymoon phase, right? It's the honeymoon phase where you're like obsessed with that person. All you want to do is spend time with that person. All you want to do is talk to that person. Every fun idea that comes to mind, you want to share, right, with that specific individual. But to what extent does it become too much is another thing, you know. People become so obsessed, I feel like, in that honeymoon phase, that they forget about sometimes the rest of the world, and their whole world becomes about that one specific individual rather than everything else. You know, there's other things going on, but once you're in and focused on that one specific person, it all goes to that one person, does it not?
um I think it can also happen though, like uh later on. So like you said, it's the honeymoon phase, but then I think you get to that point where obviously you're comfortable with each other, but then something happens that like you realize, like you're like, well, wait a minute, I don't want this person to go do something. So you start getting to that whole like honeymoon phase again, except now it's only just one person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I mean, I get what you're saying. Especially, I think that happens a lot when you get into a very long-term relationship. Um does that relate? Do you think that I'm kind of hitting the right point? I feel like once you hit to a certain point with the relationship also, um and you've been together for so long, your main focus kind of ultimately turns into, that person, and kind of what you're trying to create with that person, your own life. And if you're trying to move forward with that person, you're trying to create a family, you're trying to create stability, you're trying to create your own home. And I do think that a lot of people can kind of tend to get lost into just one individual person when you're trying to focus on creating, your own foundation, basically.
Yeah, and I mean like there's I think what people don't don't get is like the when you get comfortable with somebody, like you don't think that you're gonna get to that point in the relationship again where you're just like you want to do everything with that person, or you want to always talk to that person. Like you just get comfortable being around somebody until I think like something happens, you know. And I think that kind of goes towards more like does somebody get tired of a relationship and then the other person realizes like, wait a minute, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I totally see that. So for example, I mean, uh, you you've been in a relationship for a long time, is that right, Damien?
Yeah, well, 6 years.
6 years. So, at some point, is it fair to say that after being with somebody for so long, you kind of you get comfortable, right? So I feel like a lot of people, once you're with somebody for a certain amount of years, you kind of start to get comfortable. And I feel like where a lot of people tend to fall back on is the comfortability, and they stop doing the things that they did before to try to like impress, or not, I guess not impress, but to try to kind of keep the other person intrigued, or keep the other person I guess
Like into
uh
them, like
yeah, yeah. So like you stop doing the same things that you used to do before because you're kind of comfortable, you don't have to try as hard, I guess. But at the same time, at what point do you say, hey, like, this person deserves more than what I'm doing, or more, or at what point do you sit there and realize I'm not doing enough? Or do you think that people, I mean, where do you think that most people stop, or most people get comfortable and then stop doing what they used to do to try to, make the relationship happy, or make the relationship spontaneous? Or do you think that most people actually do try to continue and make the relationship kind of lively?
well, I think like definitely it goes back to being comfortable, like I've talked to people that, they rush into things like they start dating somebody and then it's like, oh, now we're engaged, and then oh, now we're married, now we have kids, and then 2 years later I see that same person. I'm like, oh, how's your wife and kids? And they're like, oh, we're not together no more, and I'm like, oh, what happened? And a lot of times it's like, oh, well, we were just on the same page, like we just both got, like got tired of it. And it's like, but you didn't try to fix that, and then like from personal experiences, like, there was a time in my relationship where it was like, my fiance was like, I'm getting tired of this, like it's not the same and blah blah. And that's when I was like, okay, I gotta think about what I gotta do to fix this, right? So we actually like sat down and talked and, made things right. And I think that's where people don't, they don't realize that. They just don't see that, like they don't see themselves doing it. They're just kind of like, ah, whatever, it is what it is.
So another thing, and this goes for all of you guys. So, like Daisy, for example, do you guys think that social media has a big impact on today's relationships because of the fact that, it's easier to see other people's happiness and be like, I want that, and I'm not getting that in my relationship, so let me go out and try to find that, what other people have, because I'm not getting that at home. Do you
I
guys
think
think
that's
that's that's part of it?
I think I don't know if I would say social media, but definitely like just uh trends. Does that make sense? Like there's a lot of trends. Like for example, I see a lot of moms on like TikTok, for example, they post videos about how, oh, my husband, he comes home and takes his shoes off and sits down and doesn't help me. And it's like, well, yeah, but he was working all day, you know? And then I see, like, I get it, like, it's 50-50 when you're married and you have kids. But I see a lot of women following that trend of, well, my husband does the same thing and my husband does the same thing. And like the comments are just going on and on and on and on. And it's just like, not one guy, not one man is on there saying anything. But I know every guy that's married is thinking the same thing. We're all thinking like, well, yeah, I mean, I get home and take my shoes off, but that's because I'm tired. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. Definitely.
Is that echo? Can you hear that? Kind of going back to what Jackie was saying about social media affecting relationships. I think that it does play a big role in the longevity of relationships. Not all relationships, but a big part of relationships. And like I also think that I don't it's just too easy. It's too easy. And I know this falls back on whether the person has good morals or like has their morals on right. They know what the fuck they want and don't want to do, or like don't want to be done to them, or you know what I mean. But the people who don't, I think social media is just it's too easy, man. It's too easy. Like Snapchat, quick, you can swipe up on somebody. Oh, you look cute. Conversation keeps going, and like at that point, okay, maybe you're not sexually cheating, but you're like it's not maybe. And having a conversation is different from like, oh, they're talking to this person, they're cheating. Okay, there's that, but then there's those people who come on now. You swipe up, you know what the fuck your intentions are, and if that person's coming at you a certain way, you know what their intentions are. So like, I think social media makes it too easy to have access to other people, I guess. And at that point, I feel like some people just let go of boundaries because it's so fucking easy. Messages disappear, you can delete, you can like, it's just that's my issue with social media. But I also think relationships nowadays aren't lasting as much as because people aren't putting up with as much bullshit that they did back in the day. But yeah, I have mixed feelings about social media for sure.
I
In
think I
all
can
aspects,
agree.
not just relationships.
I can agree with that. Like you said, people don't put up with bullshit. Like, and that's true because there's times where it's like, oh well, if my girl leaves me, well, I mean, I still got to take care of my kids. I still got to go to work. I still got to do what I got to do. So at some point, it's like you're right. We just don't put up with it. But I think that goes back to you know, like with my personal experience. Like, yeah, we talked about it, and I think that's like the main key in a relationship is communication. Because I can sit here and tell you about every fight that I've had with my fiance, but it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, we communicate and we come to an agreement instead of just, oh, fuck it, whatever, I don't care. I think if it was that way, then my relationship would have been over a long time ago.
I definitely think that that's the one thing that a lot of relationships nowadays, and I feel like today's society, really lack. People are not, I mean, I feel like there has to be, like you said, kind of that middle ground. There's definitely things that you shouldn't put up with, and there comes to a limit where, you should walk away. But at the same time, you kind of also should think about whether it's something that can be worked out through, and that what I mean, at the same time, it depends also, like, on the fact of if you actually want it to work out. If both individuals actually want to work it out, like you said, they will make the efforts and come to a middle ground. If one or the other doesn't want to make it work, it's never going to work, regardless. You can sit there and try to come to a middle ground. You can sit there and try to debate. You can sit there and try to negotiate. And in the end of the day, it's not going to work because it just, one or the other is not fully into it. And like you said, you and your fiance have actually taken the time and the effort to sit there, to sit down and evaluate and actually say, hey, these are the things that we need to focus on. These are the things that are the issues. Let's come to the middle ground. And like you said, you guys actually have come to a middle ground about it. That's completely different. And that's something that's very rare to see, I feel like, nowadays. A lot of people are so quick to just be like, you know what, I can do better and I'm done. And I feel like, yes, everybody should have that that confidence, I guess, in themselves and that, appreciation for themselves to know when to walk away. But at the same time, at what point do you say this is worth it and or this isn't worth it? I I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like people just don't appreciate relationships as a whole, to be able to even or maybe just aren't mature enough to even see the aspect of actually trying to work things out, or maybe it just isn't meant to be. I don't know. Daisy, do you have anything to say about it?
Sorry. Yes. Kind of going back to what Rosa was saying, how it's easy. Social media is easy. I didn't get it at first, but then she explained it and I got it. And I do agree with her 100%. Especially, like, for instance, Instagram. Like, here's a scenario. Say your partner is liking this girl's picture and it becomes a trend and you notice it and you bring it up. And then you're communicating and you say, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. Why is this becoming a trend? At that point, your partner knows that you don't like it. And then if it stops, that means that, yes, he does want to contribute and he does want to make it work and he does want to fix things. But what if he doesn't? And then it's like, okay, there's an issue. And then I do think it's super easy just because, I mean, our technology now, like, you can even delete messages even after you send them. Like, that also falls back on trust as well. But yeah, social media is very easy. I just feel like communication does play a big part in that. The way that I see it is, if your partner loves you enough, they wouldn't ever put you in a position where you feel like you're not enough, or like liking others' pictures too. Like, that's, it brings up insecurity as well. I don't know. I just feel like sometimes if the roles were switched, it wouldn't be the same. And then that's when you need, like, you could be like, okay, then put yourself in my shoes. Would you like it if I did this? And I don't know. I think that's just my perspective. I feel like, and then social media can also be like a good thing and a bad thing, but it just really depends on the person, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, so when it comes to, okay, I know we've been talking about like intimate relationships, like partners, like a significant other. Do you want to keep?
Yes, I want to interrupt
okay.
because
I was gonna change it to a different type of topic, but go ahead, Rosa.
Okay, before you switch it up, it's on mute, right? Okay. So going back to on what you said, when is it time to walk away? I think that people effing lack the fact that a person and being in a relationship, this person is only supposed to add love and support into your life. And because people aren't acknowledging, either aren't acknowledging it, don't know it, or for whatever reason it is, I think that's when, like, I think that's when people allow more shit to happen than what should have happened, if I'm explaining myself. I feel like has someone if someone goes into a relationship knowing that like this person is only supposed to add value into my life. They're only supposed to add more into my life of what I'm already giving myself. So I think at that point that's when somebody knows what boundaries to set and when to walk away and when to allow certain shit, to happen or not happen. And then going back to social media, what you said about relationships and all of that, and social media, I think also social media makes it easy for people to walk away from relationships so easily because they know all they have to do is again go swipe up on somebody or go slide in someone's DMs and a conversation starts and then there goes another little fling going on. But that's all little info I wanted to put in.
I think that definitely relates to kind of like the self-love though, because if you don't have enough self-love for yourself, you don't know and realize that you are enough and that another person should only add to what you already have, not make up for what you lack. Does that make sense? And I feel like that's where a lot of people kind of tend to give in and kind of stick to certain relationships because they feel like they need this other person because of what they lack rather than this person is helping me or adding a value, like you said, not helping, adding a value to what I already have rather than helping me with what I lack in. Does that make sense? You should not feel like you lack in something and that's why you need another person. Like, or you shouldn't. The biggest thing that I also see in people, which I've noticed and I didn't notice ever before until honestly this past year, is once I took a step back and kind of try to evaluate things, is I've noticed that a lot of people try to seek their own happiness or their own motivation in others. A lot of people, I feel like I've noticed that they feel like they need another person to have motivation to either do better in work, to do better in life in general, which it shouldn't be that way. You should want to do better because you want to do better for yourself, not because you want to do better for building a family or this or that, because all of that will come with, I feel like. But if you do not have that self-love for yourself to be like, I am enough, and another person, like you said, like Rosa said, should just add that value or another value on top of what you already have, you're gonna keep running into, I feel like, the same kind of scenarios or the same kind of obstacles with even if it's not with the same person, with another person, you're kind of gonna keep running into the same thing over and over again because you're looking for something in what you think you lack in, but at the same time they're not adding any value because you already have what you're looking for. You just don't realize it.
Codependency. Literally, it irks me, and I feel like I'm so insensitive to this shit because to me it's common sense. You go first, and then everyone else. But I mean, whatever. It's easier said than done, right? But
okay, let's switch it up. Yes. We've been talking about like significant other relationships, right? Okay, now let's touch base. Relationships doesn't just mean with a significant other. Relationships also means relationships with anybody in your life, whether that being friends, family, coworkers, networking, whatever. Just relationships. So this is the main thing that I love about this topic, is because it's not just about significant others. We can sit there and talk about networking. We can sit there and talk about family members. So when it comes to other relationships, what do you guys think is more important? Have you guys seen that little trend that's been going around? Like, I don't know if you guys have seen, they've been posting. So when it comes to like your family or whatever, like girls, it will show like, what is it? Like son, dad, brother, like who goes first type of thing, And like when it comes to that, when you're in a relationship, I guess it's a little different, or when you're married. But in reality, how do we categorize every relationship that we have in our lives? Because a relationship is not just about the individual. Like we said, you kind of get obsessed with, or you kind of maintain your focus on your significant other for the majority portion of your life, when you're with a specific person, or when when you have a life, with that person, like for example kids, and you have your own house, you have your kids, you have your significant other. You kind of stick to that, but at what point do you sit there and actually take importance of the other relationships that you actually have in your life, like your friends, family, and coworkers? So at that point, what other relationship in your guys' life do you feel like is most important to you besides a significant other?
For
Um,
me, um, for me, I think my relationship with my brothers, like I could say my parents, but in all reality, you know, I'm closer to my brothers than I am with my parents. So like, I mean, don't get me wrong, my kids and my fiance, they're, that's my main focus, right? But when you're talking about relationship with somebody else, when it comes to my brothers, it's like, well, hold on, like I who else do I go to for advice or, help, or, just somebody to talk to in general? Like when I can't talk to my fiance about something, who do I go to? My brothers, one of them at least, So I think when I say or when I categorize, I think I would say like obviously my family, kids, fiance, and then right after that is my brothers. And then it's my family, mom, dad, grandparents, as far as uncles, aunts, cousins, and all that. For me, in my life, they're not really. I wouldn't say I have a relationship with a lot of my family. So it's kind of just it starts going like kind of distant after that. You know.
So, do you think that you're closer with your brothers because you feel like you can relate to them more than you can with your parents? Or is it because, well, I guess, what do you think that you can relate or be more open with your brothers than you can with your parents in that aspect?
I think certain stuff like I'm a grown ass man, right? I can go and talk to my mom about anything. I can talk to my mom about just about anything. But my mom wouldn't understand some stuff like my brothers would, you know? Like if I go up and tell my mom and my dad even like, "Hey, I'm struggling with money or whatever." They're gonna the first thing that comes to their head is, because they're old school, well, you gotta work hard and work hard and work hard. And that's kind of like, well, yeah, I know I have to work hard, but I also know that I have to have time for my kids and my fiance. So I can't just be working, you know, all the time like they did, you know. And when I talk to my brothers about it, it's like, man, I'm struggling with money, and they're more on like, oh, like if you need help with money, I can help you, or maybe we could figure something out together, like, you know, anything. So there's definitely a difference.
What about you ladies? Is there another relationship? I totally agree on that, by the way. I definitely feel like there's certain things that I would feel more comfortable personally, speaking to my siblings about first before going to my parents. There's definitely, parents can be a touchy subject just because they're harsh on us, regardless, whether it's from love or not. Most of the time it all comes from love, whatever. Or also it can come from just how they were raised. They for the most part they were all raised in a different generation than we were. They were probably more, their parents were probably harder on them also than they probably were on us, whatever. or maybe not. But at the same time, for the most part, when we think about our parents, we kind of think about the fact that they kind of do stuff out of like, love or try to teach us a lesson, but at the same time, I totally get that, where I would feel more comfortable telling my siblings certain things before I would go to my parents. But you ladies, what do you guys think? Who out of, besides your significant other, or if you were to have a significant other, what do you feel you would hold, or what relationship in your life do you feel like is more important to you? Or
I feel like maintaining relationships with not only family but friends, like people who are meaningful to you is important. I wouldn't just choose a specific person, but if I did have to choose a specific person, um, I mean, I definitely would never want to lose my relationship with any of my family, I don't think, but I don't think I know I wouldn't. I mean, maybe there's some family members I wouldn't care for, but anyways, off topic. But I think my sister and my mom and my dad. You know what? Scratch that. My little brother, man. You know why? That little boy, I watched him grow up, and looking back at when I was a child, I really needed somebody there, and I didn't have anybody there. And there was one time that me and my little brother fought, and I started crying. A little 8-year-old baby bawled my eyes out in my car. But it was only because I was so frustrated to the point that I realized I was being mean. And I'm like, I don't ever want him to grow up one day and look at me as I was that mean as adult who like didn't care or whatever. Like, even though those aren't my intentions, those, it might come off like that to him because he's tiny, he's little, and I look back on grown-ups who were mean to me and I'm like, damn, like they were this and that. I think.
So you think that's the type of relationship that you would really try to take care of, to nurture, and to make sure that you try your best to keep whole and to keep pure, and not to kind of damage it because of the fact that that's a relationship that I can totally agree with that, just because I have a lot of nieces and nephews, and I'm not gonna lie, we've all had our, past, and have kind of made our mistakes, or kind of been bad or whatever, and I'm free to admit that I went through that stage, but I can definitely relate to that, just because of the fact that having my nieces and nephews really impacted me a lot, because honestly, all it took was one conversation from my mom. My mom said to me, like, as I started getting older, she just mentioned the fact that she said, hey, you are the model and the example for your nieces and nephews. And at that point, I actually didn't really. When she first said it to me, it took me a minute to really sit down and think about it, because I didn't really think, like, they're not looking up to me. Like, I'm living my own life over here. They don't care about what I'm doing.
You wouldn't, yeah.
Until they started reaching out, and until
you're like, oh shit, they pay attention.
I don't think your mic is working.
Wait, you said Jackie's mic isn't working, or whose mic?
Yeah, I can't hear Jackie at all.
You can't hear me?
Oh, now I can. Nope, never mind. It's not working.
Okay. It's okay.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can.
All right. Well, we'll just have to figure out this, I guess. But anyway, so yeah, I didn't realize for a long time until I actually took a minute to sit down and evaluate things, and I did notice that my younger nieces and nephews were actually looking up to me, which is honestly, I'm not gonna lie, if it wasn't for my nieces and nephews and for me thinking about the fact that I don't want them to go through all the stuff that I went through growing up, I realized that I don't have kids, you know, but at the same time, I love them with all my heart. You know, I love them as if they were my kids. So I did not want to give them any bad examples. I always try to be a good example for them after that. But it's very difficult to try to sit there and base your life off of trying to be an example for certain people in your life as well. Especially for, especially if you don't have kids. I feel like, I don't know, Rosa or Daisy, sorry. Daisy, do you have anything to add to this? I know you have your nieces and stuff, so I'm pretty sure you can relate to it.
Yeah, I say fuck them. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
What'd you say? Fuck them kids.
I'm kidding.
We can have a whole relaxed conversation. It's all good.
No, I do get it. Especially because I have this niece. We're like, how old is she? She's 19. I'm 25. How many years is that? I suck at math. Growing up, we kind of grew up like. Oh,
There
can you hear me?
Talk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't hear you on mine.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you now.
Yeah. So this niece, I grew up with her kind of like a sister. My mom raised her, so we were always together. And my mom would tell me all the time, like, you need to watch what you're doing because she's you. She wants to be you. And I was like, well, to each their own. And I would always get mad at my mom because she would be like, your mistakes are gonna be not her reflection, but like she's gonna think it's okay to do it because you've done it. And to a certain extent, I would get upset because I'm like, well, even if I tell her and show her what to do, everybody is their own person. Like everybody has to make their own mistakes. But now that I'm 25, I get it. It's sad, but like even when I got an OWI, like getting personal AF, but I got an OWI and I just remember like looking at her and I just cried and cried. And it wasn't even her fault. It was just me because I was just disappointed in myself. And I was like, dang, like what am I showing her? And now I just tell her like, hey, you know what? Do what you're supposed to be doing. Don't do this, don't do that. And yeah, I definitely do see my reflection in her. So yeah, I do get that part.
So going back on what I said about my little brother, like the reason why I brought up that the fact that he was one of the relationships in my life that I would want to maintain, and hopefully grow. Because I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, I'm with my family all the time, because I'm not. My little brother, I'm not. He's too much sometimes, but I think it's important for me to have a relationship with him because it shows him what a real relationship is, what it is for someone to sit down and be like, hey, put your freaking tablet down, put your phone down, pay attention to me, have a conversation, tell me how your day was, how school was, what's going on in your life that you were, that is pissing you off, what your friends do to you today, or whatever the fact. I guess I just want to show him that to be open, to talk, to just have a conversation with mom, with me, with whoever. And if something's ever going wrong in his life, that he has somebody here who's going to listen. Like it all starts off with the small things. And I feel like small conversations like that can provide comfort into someone. And
allow them to know, like, hey, she listens. She's, she's here. And I think that's a big because he's small. You learn those things as a kid. So as a kid, if you don't get all of that, I didn't get that. I mean, talking down on my parents or anything, but I feel like I didn't have the best relationship with him. And had I had that relationship, I feel like I wouldn't have gone through all the things that I went through by myself because I felt like I had nobody. Whereas if I'm showing my little brother, hey, I'm here, I care about how your day was, I care about what subject you're struggling with, I care about if your friends were being mean to you, or if it's, you know what I mean? Like, just show him that I care, even if it's the smallest thing. I care about how your day was, so tell me. And if you don't want to tell me, suck it up because you're going to talk to me,
All right, so let's get more raw. Okay, what is a relationship that you guys feel is very difficult for you guys to maintain?
Oh my goodness.
Me personally, I'll go first.
Yes.
I don't talk about this a lot, but I have a brother who has been incarcerated most of my life, has been pretty much a drug addict. It's been very hard. When I was younger, I was very heartbroken because he was a father figure to me, even though it's very hard to understand because I had my father in my life my whole time. My father figure was always him, my brother, rather than my actual dad. For the simple fact that he always protected me in ways that I unfortunately felt like my own father never did. But I mean, that's one of the relationships I felt like was very hard for me to maintain, even after he was incarcerated, just because I had very mixed feelings. I loved him when I was younger. He ended up getting out of prison. Then it was very hard to kind of maintain that communication. And then ultimately, when I started kind of communicating with him again, it kind of felt like I didn't know him. Honestly, it felt like I was meeting a whole new person, which was really weird because I knew he was my brother. We're blood. We grew up together. I remember him when I was younger, and then I don't remember him, and now I see him again older, and I don't know who this person is. Not only that, obviously his habits kind of contributed to the fact that I kind of started to feel like I didn't really want a relationship with him because I felt kind of angry at some points in my life at him because of what he would make my parents go through. And ultimately I had to realize that, he's still my brother. Regardless, I can't do anything about his situation other than try to help and try to be there for him and try to encourage him to be better. So in that aspect, do you guys think that there's a relationship in your guys' life that you guys feel is very hard to maintain as well?
I would have to say there's a couple actually. My grandparents, these are my mom's parents. For the longest time I was the black sheep of the family, being gangs, drugs, whatever. It was just that point in, growing up, it's just that point in my life. And no matter what, like, everybody would talk about me, like, oh, Damien did this and Damien did that. But they would still, my grandparents would still call me and, talk to me, whatever. But they wouldn't ever, like, say the bad stuff, They would always say, like, hey, how are you? Blah, blah. They live out of state. So, I didn't see them a lot, but they always kept in touch. And now it's hard for me because it's like they're old and I know that they're going to eventually pass away and I can't control that, And I'm like, it sucks because I want to talk to them, but I can't. Like, I'll call them or they'll call me like on my birthday and it's a quick, hey, happy birthday. hope you're doing good, and that's it. Because other than that, it's like I just can't. Like I start thinking, and I'm like, they're not gonna be here one day, and it's like I can't like physically speak, you know. And then the other one is like with my dad, you know. Back then it was like he was there, we used to hang out all the time, and then it's kind of like the same thing. He went to jail, he did his time, and then he got out, and it was like, well, by the time he got out, I was already 18, and he got out with that mentality of, like, hey, listen to me, you don't want to go to jail, don't do this, don't do that. Well, being 18 years old, I was like, well, hey, you know what? Like, I'm gonna do whatever I want, like whatever I want, and you can't tell me nothing, and I ain't afraid of going to jail, blah blah. So that relationship just kind of, it went its separate ways, and it wasn't like, oh, I'm hanging out with my dad tomorrow, or no, it was just kind of like, if we saw each other, we saw each other, and we talked for a little bit, and then I got older, now I have kids, whatever, and it's still the same.
Now, do you think that's a Hispanic thing?
What's that?
Do you think that's a Hispanic thing, like a Hispanic culture for men? Like, do you feel like Hispanic men tend to be like more non-emotional, or try to not show their emotions as much? They're very guarded in a way.
Yeah, it is, and I feel like, I guess it goes both ways, because I see a lot of guys my age that hang out with their dad, and you know they're comfortable hugging their dad, and they're comfortable telling their dad, like, I love you, and the way that we were raised, like, that wasn't a thing for us. Like, it wasn't like my dad's love language wasn't that, maybe to a certain point, maybe to when we were like 5, 6 years old. But after that, it was kind of like, my dad's always been the kind of guy that would say, like, hey, you're a guy, like, you don't cry, or this and that, like, very what's the word I'm looking for, um very manly, just, you couldn't do certain things, because
Like, you have to be masculine,
yeah, there you
right?
go. Yeah,
You
so
you can't show any weakness, type of thing, I feel like, right?
right. So, but now that, I have a son, my son comes up to me and gives me hugs and says, "Oh, I love you," and I'm like, "Oh, I love you too," and for a while, even with my daughter, it was like, I can't say I love you, because that's showing like emotion, that's showing like weakness. But as I got older, I'm like, no, I can't be doing that, like, I gotta show them, like,
And if you don't tell her you love her, she's gonna be swooped up by her feet by any guy who tells her he loves her. You know what I mean?
right,
So,
right. So that's like, now when I talk to my dad, it's more of like, we talk like grown men, we just hang out and talk. We don't argue anymore, nothing like that. But it's still not to that level of like, oh, hey dad, I love you. Because I feel like if I said it, or if he said it, it would be kind of like, what? Like, why are you saying that?
Okay. I have some thoughts on that. So I can what you just said about you and your dad, and how your dad was very masculine growing up. Um, I would say that too about my dad, and I wouldn't even know if I would call that masculine. I think I would call that more, and I guess I'm not like putting in fully everything, but I think it was more of a, I don't know. Okay, I don't want to talk about that, but I think he also didn't. I mean, parents who don't grow up with like love and affection shown to them, they don't know any better, so they don't show their kids that. Or it could be for whatever other reason. But I also think that
as we get older and we ourselves realize the issues going on, like, on into why our relationships with our parents or whatever didn't work out. I think so, like, for you, that you realize, like, oh, now you have your son and you want to show your son the opposite of what your dad showed you, right?
Right.
So I think it's, since we were able to break that, like, I almost want to say that chain of not showing affection and not making it normal, or not normalizing it to show emotion, I think that it's up to us to change that in our parents. Since they weren't able to provide that for us, we can provide that to them, because it's something that they've never had before, going back to what I said about their parents probably not showing them affection. Like, for example, me and my dad, I shit you not, we would not talk. We went years without talking. Even living in the same household when I moved out, like, it was just years. And then finally I came to this conclusion that, like, man, maybe I just really needed my dad after all the bullshit I went through. Like, maybe I just there was plenty of fucking times that I just wanted to go to my mom and hug her and cry, or to my dad and hug him and cry. Like, especially my dad. Oh my goodness, I craved the warmness of my dad's hugs. Like, even, like, it was just. And then finally I got to a point of, like, why I'm not, like, suck it up and find the right moment to talk to my dad. And or maybe it doesn't even have to be to talk to your dad. How about you just go and hug your dad and start normalizing that? And it's really awkward at first, because there is something in my life that happened that really changed my outlook on my relationship with my dad and how important that really was to me. But since that moment in time, I, like, fully acknowledged that it was something that I really, really wanted. And so I took it upon myself to make sure that I hug and I give my dad a kiss every single time that I get to my parents' house. And I do that with my mom too. And I do that when I get there and when I leave. And I do it every single time
So is that something that you have always done, or you started doing?
I started doing it. It literally just started in November.
And is there a reason why you started doing it specifically?
Yeah. So that's kind of going back to that key moment in my life, or that pivotal moment in my life, that, like, just really, like, all right, you gotta do something about these feelings. Something's gotta be done. And if it's not by him, it's gonna be by you. It's what my mentality was. So my grandpa passed away, and I got to see my grandpa, a couple of days before he passed away, and he just grabbed my hand and he was like, he said something to me that I had already been knowing, and I know the reasons why he said it. And then also just seeing my dad go through the shit that he went through when my grandpa passed away, and all of the family, just seeing that, it's just like I don't want to go another year wondering what it's like to have a relationship with somebody who's important to me, regardless of however he was towards me, or how I felt like he was towards me growing up, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I feel like if someone doesn't take the initiative, then why not you?
Daisy, what about you? What type of relationship in your life do you feel like is very hard to maintain?
I hate to say this, but my dad too.
Daddy issues, God! This is going to a podcast about daddy issues at this moment.
No, and it's so funny you say that, because I guess I never really, I didn't really come to the terms of daddy issues. Like, it's funny because I used to be like, that doesn't even exist. Like, that's not me. I don't know what that is. But the more you grow and you start seeing things, and then you just remember how it was when you were younger, and then especially with relationships, like, you start to notice a trend, like what you look for, and it's kind of sad, especially when it comes to daddy issues. Like, that's when I realized, I'm like, damn, yeah, like, I definitely have something going on there. And it's sad to say, but it's true. like with my dad, like I love him so much, like dearly, but just growing up, it was just like, to keep it short, he was only ever there to like discipline me. He never said good job or you're doing good or
You miss those kind words and affection from the dad that you
Can I
probably
add on
could
to
have
that?
had.
I want to add.
Go ahead, go
Stand right now.
ahead.
I'm raising my hand.
Wait, I just want to comment this. Rosa and Daisy are both right next to me on each side, but they don't want to show their cameras because they're very shy. So don't be confused if you see me looking side to side because they're both here. All right, go ahead, Rosa. Add on.
My train of thought is gone.
okay, I'm gonna
Wait, no,
continue.
it's driving on the table.
No, but yeah, it's crazy because I never really opened up about my dad, like really to anybody until like, well, I guess to friends, yes, but like in my family, I never said anything until one day I just blew up. And I actually blew up with my mom. And like, even when I talk to my mom and we mention my dad, I just cry like all the time. I cry. I've never really had a long conversation with my dad. It's awkward for me.
It happens. I feel you, girl. I've been there. It's a very touchy subject for myself too. It's a not to make this whole podcast about daddy issues. We'll do a whole other podcast for that.
Time out. But it's funny because Rosa even gave me this. What do I want to call it? Oh my gosh, what is it called? Advice. Yes, advice. I took her advice. Like with the hugs. I started the hugs and I did that for like 2 days and I felt weird. So then what I did also, I noticed my dad has like a love for baseball. And I took him to a baseball game. And it made me feel good. We didn't talk, but we were there together.
It's a start. It's a start. Something's better than nothing. But going back to what you were saying, how your dad didn't provide, or what was it, affection? You said he was only there for discipline. So I feel like also kind of to back our parents up a little bit is that a lot of it, like, think about how we struggle on our daily life, right? And we don't have kids, let alone having an entire family. It's so easy. I think it is so easy to get caught up in like the idea of like, oh, I have to provide financially. I have to provide like, giving my kids stability and all, like, well, stability in a financial way and whatever, and having food, just, I feel like it's so easy to get caught up in the materialistic and the financial side of things that they don't focus on like the affection part and how important that is, like,
Yes, and bringing this back, Damon mentioned it in the beginning, how he said that when he would struggle with money, he would rather go to his siblings because they would help him instead of his parents saying work hard, because he made a good point. It does matter being in your kid's life. It does matter making time for them. So I kind of just wanted to point that back because I mean, if you really look at it, especially coming from a Hispanic family, like I'm 25, like they were 16 with the whole family, like 4 kids, like mouths to feed, like everybody has to work all the time. So yeah, I get it too where Rose is coming from. Definitely different times.
And that's something that, going back to relationship with your significant other, like for a long while, I was the only income. So sometimes it's like, yeah, I do come home and I sit down.
That's very difficult being the only income. Definitely.
Yeah.
That would add on a lot of stress to you, I feel like.
Yeah, because it's like, the times when it was like, there was those arguments where it's like, oh, all you do is come home and sit down and you don't help me. And I'm just like, okay, but, I don't want to sound like a dick or nothing, but it's like, how is the rent going to get paid this month? Because of me. How are we going to get groceries? Because of me. And for a guy, you know, coming from a guy's point of view, sometimes it's like you don't even want to think about those things. You don't want to deal with those things. But then again, it's like you get so caught up in money and bills and food, and then your kids want to play and you're like, oh, hold on, I can't, like, I gotta pay this bill, or hold on, I gotta call this person or whatever. So I think that's, you know, one of the things that I realized, you know, and I kind of like saw it growing up too. Like my dad for the longest time was the only income. So it's like I don't want to be in his position and get to the point where I look at my kids and I'm like, you know, I can't even say I love you because I'm too worried and too caught up in bills or groceries or, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah. No, I definitely see how that could be difficult.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So when it do you okay, so we've been talking about significant others, family. Uh what about friendships? Do you feel like you have friendships that outside of like family relations and relate like your significant other, do you feel like there are other relationships outside of your family circle and what people you're related to that you can also maintain at like a healthy relationship type of thing,
So
like
I got
friendship
I got I got I
friendships,
got a good one.
coworkers? Yeah.
So I think when it comes to friendships as an adult, I think that your closest friends stay the farthest away, if that makes sense. Because I got like two or three very, very close friends that I don't see. I'll see them maybe a few times a year. And when we, you know, hang out or whatever, it's like nothing ever changed, you know. So I think that
So they're
like
understanding, they're accepting, understanding, and acknowledge where you are
yeah,
in life.
yeah, because like I said, as adults, you know, like everybody has their own life. You know, we're all doing our own. You know, a lot of my friends have kids. You know, they're married. They're busy. So that's why I say my closest friends are always the farthest away.
Yeah.
But you know, we're just that close that when we do see each other, it's like nothing ever changed. You know, you're just like, oh hey, what's up? You know, you talk like you just saw them the last 3 days. You know.
Yeah, I feel that. What about you guys?
Yeah, definitely. I actually have a friend too. I've known her since I was in middle school. And it's so funny because so her fiance is my boyfriend's cousin. So it's crazy how that happened. But even like though we're kind of family by papers now, I still don't even see her. But when I do see her, it definitely is like nothing changed. And it's funny, our texts are always like, let's hang out. I want to hang out. And we literally live so close to each other, but we just never have time, and we understand it because she has kids. I don't have kids, but I mean, I'm not gonna say I'm trying to get my life together, but I am, you know. Um, so yeah, definitely can relate to that.
Mm, I
So
think
basically, I was saying like we've talked about family, about parents, you know, and stuff. But when it comes to like other friendship, like friendships, basically, yeah. But it doesn't have to be friendships. It can be coworkers and stuff like that. Just networking or just people in your life. You know, I feel like definitely boundaries between friendships, acquaintances. Yeah, there's definitely categories. You know, you have your close friends, you have your hangout friends, you have your at least that's how I kind of categorize. And to no offense, you know, some of my friends I love you guys all, but you know, there's definitely, you know, friends you go out with. There's friends that you do, you know, networking with, or there's, you know, coworkers, there's acquaintances, whatever. What do you think is one of the difficult relationships that you is difficult to maintain, or that you hold close? It doesn't have to be that it's difficult to maintain, but that you hold close to you, but maybe it isn't to what made to you aren't as close as you maybe would like to be.
So I think friendships, professional relationships, all of those are important to maintain. Do I maintain all of them? No. And what I like, especially honestly, to me, friends are very important, yes, but also professional relationships and maintaining those are like key top shit to me personally, because I mean, tomorrow comes, I need to reach out and I need help on something because I want to get to a certain point or whatever. I know I have this person to go to, you know, for guidance. It's kind of like you pick and choose. You pick and choose who you tell things to, who you go to for certain things. So it's important to maintain relationships that can provide to you that safe zone to for me to be vulnerable to you and ask you for advice when I'm going through shit. That safe zone to know that hey, you have that knowledge on how to start this business, so I'm gonna go to you to ask for advice. You know, I think it's important to maintain relationships for that reason, because you know every person, or at least to me, every person signifies something in my life, you know. So yeah,
I definitely agree on that. Okay, so I don't know.
But hold on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go
Go ahead,
Jackie.
Go ahead, girl. Go ahead.
No, but I think that it is also like, although maintaining relationships is important to me, do I honestly put in my 100% to maintain them? Like, am I consistently calling you every other day, even every other week? Like, I am shitty at that. I am shitty. I'll ghost you for like a whole 2 months and I'll come back.
Rosa, do it to you. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I ignore Rosa like half the time, and then I'll text her back like
When?
because I
didn't see you hung out with me.
I'll
So
text,
I don't know what you're
but
talking
I'm not gonna lie. I will admit I am one of those people that I lack in keeping in communication, and that is one of the first things that what Daisy said. That was one of the first things that Daisy mentioned during this podcast was communication is one of the main things that she finds important in relationships, which I will admit that I am a very difficult person to communicate with at some point, you know. I tend to forget to text people back sometimes, but at the same time, let me make this clear. Over the past year, I feel like I have very dedicated a lot of time to my self-love and to myself, to where it's not necessarily the fact that I don't want to dedicate that time to keeping that communication with certain people. It's just the fact that I feel like I've given enough to others, and now I feel like it's time for me to give that time to myself. So I don't think. Yeah, no. Go ahead, girl. Go ahead.
Let me interrupt you. I don't like the fact that you're giving an explanation as to why you need to stay away from people, because you do not owe that to nobody. I know this is just a podcast, but in general, y'all, you don't owe shit to anybody. And if somebody takes it the wrong fucking way, that you need a month or a couple weeks, a couple fucking days to say to yourself and get your fucking thoughts back together. If somebody honestly has a problem with that, they are not your friends. I cannot tell you the amount of people, not the amount, but there's been a few people that have like dead ass thought that there was a problem because I needed space. Like, if someone can't respect and understand that life is fucking crazy, especially as an adult. I mean, obviously as a kid too, right? But especially as an adult, if someone cannot understand that like Bro, life smacks sometimes. Like you can't always prioritize texting somebody back or answering a fucking call. I'll watch my phone ring and be like, I'm busy. I know I'm not fucking busy.
And let me say something.
Okay, time out. The whole texting thing gets to me because you know what I think? What entitles a person so much to the point where they think that you have to text them back? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, we're cool, yeah, we're friends, but I don't have to text you back. Like, you know, like, and that comes back with needing your own space and your own time. But like, people are so needy these days. I have noticed that too. Like, if you don't text back, they're upset.
Damien, what do you think? What do you think about that?
So I feel like I grew up in a weird time period. Like texting wasn't a thing when I was in high school. I mean, it was, but not like how it is now. You know, like when I was in high school, if you were texting, you were rich, you were a popular kid. You know, so now.
Shit. I guess we're rich now.
So now,
I didn't
you
have
know,
a phone until I was 17.
when I try to talk to somebody or like if I meet somebody and I'm like, you know, they're like, oh, text me, and I'm like, yeah, sure. But like I said, I come from that era where like texting wasn't a thing, so sometimes I'll just forget, and then later on they're like, hey, what happened? Like you never texted me, and I'm like, oh shit, like I forgot, my bad, you know, like, and then I'll be like, hey, call me real quick, and whoever it is will be like, why? And I'm like, so we can figure out what we're gonna do or where we're going, or why don't you just want to text? And I'm like, I don't know, you know, like I just don't. I've never been that kind of person to text,
I
you know.
can all right. I can relate to that because you know what? I feel like a lot of people don't understand. All right. That's another kind of reason why. No, this is another reason why I kind of. All right, let's hear Rosa out real quick because she.
Y'all just send voice messages. You don't even have to text.
No, how about let's not do that because Rosa always, you know that I have a.
fucking hate
I
texting, bro.
personally-
I'm at work and I get a voice message. My coworkers are like,
I personally have an issue with voice messaging just because of the fact that when I get a voice message and I'm at work, I don't want to sit there and play that shit out loud. Like I don't know what the heck you're saying.
Headphones.
I mean, yeah, but shit. No, but I can definitely relate to you, Damien. I will say one thing. I was in a relationship for a long time, and once I got out of that relationship, well, while I was in the relationship, texting to me was like our, you know, number one form of communication. So I didn't mind texting. Once I was out of the relationship, I cannot tell you honestly pinpoint why, but I absolutely hate texting. Like I hate it so much. And that is one of the things why I feel like has like held me back from keeping in communication so much with certain people or friends, you know, for example, because I feel like I absolutely hate it. I hate texting now. And it's weird, you know, because I was like you said, I was kind of like not obsessed with, you know, the person that I was with, but the fact that I was in a relationship, I felt the need to sit there and constantly be on my phone and checking my phone. Well, once I was out of it, I didn't feel the need to be on my phone as much. And so when people would text me, I would kind of be like, this is my time, you know. And I also got into like the self-love, you know, whatever, trying to focus on me and type of thing. And so dedicating more time to myself, I kind of felt like I don't need to sit on my phone as much. I deleted my social media for a while, you know. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I felt amazing when I did. And yeah, of course, you know, I lost communication with certain people once I, you know, kind of shut down my social media for a bit, but I felt good, you know, and that's weird to say because like you want to maintain certain relationships, but at the same time, kind of like where Rosa said, and I'm not gonna lie, after my last relationship, I sat here and I kind of like distanced myself from a lot of people. But at the same time, the people who I never thought would be here, like for example, I'm not gonna lie, Rosa and Daisy, we hadn't talked in years. I'm not gonna lie. Before what this past like year, we had not talked in a long time. I was very in my own world, in my own bubble and stuff, and now like I think I've hung out with them more than I've hung out with anyone else. Like, and it's crazy because we don't see each other on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. We see each other every once in a while. And even me and Rosa, which is why I say like sometimes I can be bad and I won't respond to messages till like a day later or whatever. But it's fine because she understands. She knows, I have stuff going on and it's okay. And she's understanding about it. And like you said, how you mentioned about Damien, about talking to your friends and stuff, like she, for example, does the same thing. I can sit here and text her probably like 3 weeks later and she'll act like nothing happened, and vice versa. And those are relationships that I feel like are the best relationships that you can ever maintain, because regardless, you're always there, like, yes, like, I mean, they
Pounds on chest.
acknowledge your differences, and everybody's going through their own shit, like you said. I don't know, I really do appreciate the friendships that I have now and today, um even though it's very hard to maintain a lot of relationships, but
And I think that at the same time, like, you kind of got to appreciate the friendships that didn't last, you know? Like there's like those relationships, like there's people that I know that, I was great friends with. We had, like they were kind of like those distant friends, like you talk to them every once in a while, but it's like nothing ever changed. And then, it goes back to when I got with my girl, you know. Once I got with my girl, it's like, okay, yeah, you're my friend, but this is my girlfriend, like I'm obviously going to want to spend more time with her than with you. And then not only that, then it goes to, okay, now this person wanted that same thing, so they went and hit her up, and then it's like, well, now you just ruined that friendship. You just ruined that relationship because of that, like.
yeah, I feel you. What do you think, Daisy?
Um. Well, you have to? Okay. I think so too. I think that everything happens for a reason as well. The people who left for a reason. Me personally, I haven't had the best luck with friendships. um, and you know what? I take it as a learning experience. And I realize now that I just try my best to give my all, and then, but like sometimes it's like, okay, why am I giving my all and the other person isn't reciprocating? Like now I just back off, and it's like, yeah, no, this isn't working. But in the past, I would like jump bridges for a person who wouldn't even like.
Do you think that maybe sometimes we expect more from people than we should?
Yeah, and that's where communication comes in, I feel like. Like for instance, you and Rosa, like I know exactly what you guys expect from friendships, and like vice versa. Like we don't, and I feel like it comes a lot with maturity as well. Like, come on, we're adults. Like, you know what's expected. You know like I respect you, you respect me. Like, it's just, I don't want to say it's levels to the shit, but it kind of is. Like, I would compare our friendship to like high schoolers. Because, like it's crazy to say, like, looking back, like in high school, you had so many friends. And then now it's like,
This is gonna go back to like my niece and shit, because I try to tell one of my youngest nieces, I try to tell her this too. Like, You are so young, and I've had this conversation with her, and I've told her, you're so young that people are gonna come and go from your life, and you might not understand it, but same, what Damien said. I appreciate those relationships that have left, and I've experienced things, and they've been lessons, and I have learned from every single person that's ever been in my life, regardless.
You know what's so crazy though? Coming back to that topic, me and Rosa were friends in kindergarten. Like, we're 25 now.
People
girl.
come and go, right?
They do, but I've always
came without leaving.
exactly. But like, listen though, listen. Let me talk. Let me talk though.
Wait. Let me change it back. This is a real talk. All right. Wait. What? Rosa and Daisy used to be friends, and then they didn't talk for a while.
For years.
Years,
Like,
bro.
I want to say like
Okay,
5
so
to 6
now,
years.
now we're not having this conversation.
Because not time out. Let me finish.
This is why I didn't think this
No, it's so crazy. And like,
Now it's getting real.
and like, I hate to wrap this back to my dad as well, but like, one of the best things my dad has ever told me in my life was when I told my dad, I was like, hey, do you remember Rosa? And he's like, of course I remember Rosa. Like, that was your childhood friend. Like, and that's all he said. Cause I mean, we never have a conversation, And I was like, I'm going to go to brunch with her. And he was like, you know what? That's good. He was like, that was your person when you were a kid. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. And honestly, in the beginning, I was like, should I go? Should I not go? Like, I was just like iffy about it. But then after my dad said that, I was like, you know what? I'm going. And it's crazy because I read it somewhere where it's like, what's for you is gonna come back to you no matter what. It's gonna keep coming back. And I was like, dang, like, yeah, you're my person. Like, you complete me in a way. It's like to a point where it's like you're not even my friend. Like, it's more than just a friend. Like, Oh, not song.
They're getting
Have you guys heard that video? I love you, bitch.
No, but it's crazy. Go ahead, Rose.
So I wanted to touch on the fact that a lot of the times, like, I do appreciate the people who have left you know what? Maybe I'm toxic, but I know damn well I don't feel like.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with admitting that you're toxic.
Maybe I am fucking toxic, but I know damn well
We can all be a little bit toxic. I think that's one of the things that people fail in a lot is admitting their own faults. Admitting where you're wrong. Like, many people like to throw the blame on others, and at some point or another, when it comes to relationships, we're not always right. And I feel like we always have some sort of fault in whatever goes on.
And like,
Regardless if we want to or not, or if we mean to or not, there's always a part of us that has something to contribute to the result of every relationship that we're in. So back to you, Rosa.
Facts. But so I was saying, like, for me admitting that I might be toxic, I don't know, but like, I don't know how I feel about saying that for real. But what I'm saying is, like, I know damn well that like me, at least intentionally, I've never done anything to a friend that, like, I know I intentionally did that to fuck them over or to hurt them or whatever, And you lying, bitch. No. Why the fuck you lying? No, anyways, back to it. And I say intentionally because I think it's so easy to miscommunicate and interpret certain things in our own ways. Like, each and every one of us have our own lens as to how we perceive things and how we want to take things said to us. So I feel like when you and me fell off, even looking back at it now, I'm like, okay, there are some things that, like, I know that I did that in that moment I genuinely thought, like, nah, I'm good. Like, I'm not, like, fucking up, But looking back at it now, I'm like, bitch, you were being petty. Like, come on now, like, And so And even like certain things that you said, I remember we and you talked about the whole situation. So me and her got in an argument. There was one day that alcohol was involved too, but that made it even worse. Like emotions and alcohol, obviously, no ma'am, no ma'am. But like there were certain things that you said that maybe to you weren't harmful, but to me they hurt. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what happens with a lot of friendships that fall off or have fallen off with me. I guess I'm talking for me, but I feel like it's just been that miscommunication because if, and then this is another thing where like going back to what you said about expectations and you just express or whoever said it. I think going back to that, it's like we set ourselves up for failure in expecting people to do what you would do for them or to do certain things, you know. Like for me, I would have expected those friends that I fell off with because I know that I didn't intentionally fuck them over. So I expect that. And if I felt a certain way towards somebody, I'm gonna come and tell you. If you're somebody who means something to me, I'm gonna come and tell you. You did this, this, and that, and it made me feel this way. Like, what's up? Like, what was it? Like, how did I interpret this? Like, because no, like correct me if I'm like coming at you sideways because I want to know that you're really my friend and that it's just me misinterpreting this. You know what I mean? Like, and I think I set myself up for failure on that one because I expect somebody who feels a certain way towards me. I expect them to come and tell me, like, Rosa, this is what the fuck you did.
All right.
You did me feel this way.
This is girls. Now, what about men? Damien, do you feel like you as a man, do you feel like you'd have the same approach towards a friend if you were to have an issue with a friend? Would you have the same approach to be able to have that conversation and be like, what's up?
So,
Try
for
to try to
example,
salvage that friendship.
can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, for example, going back to that one friend that went behind my back and tried to message my girlfriend. Um, it wasn't more of a like, hey, what did I do to you for you to, message my girlfriend? It was more of like hey, like, why? It wasn't like I felt like I did something bad. It was just kind of like, why? And it wasn't like, oh, like I didn't want to tell him like you're fucking up, like it was just kind of like, why would you do that? Like we could still be cool, we could still be friends, but you know, don't do that. That's wrong. So, and his response was like, oh no, like it wasn't like that, but it's like I saw the message, bro. Like he said some creepy stuff, and I was like, why? So I think for us guys, it's kind of like we don't really care enough to like want somebody to be our friends. We just kind of want to get to the point, like, and then after that, it's like, okay, if I see you, I see you. If I don't, it is what it is, and that's that. So like with this dude, I've seen him around, and I'll say what's up, whatever, but it's like I don't care enough to be like, oh, like, what do you do for work now? Or let's go get something to drink sometime. Like, it's just like, okay, you're there. It is what it is.
But what if it's someone who's actually meaningful to you? Like maybe a friend that you grew up with. Like that's where I was getting at, I guess. With if it's someone meaningful to me, I'll actually sit down and talk to. Because if it's someone that I just like here and there, we've been friends for whatever, however, like a couple months or whatever, maybe a year. I guess I wouldn't base it off time, but just someone who I know that isn't someone honestly like full on that I would say like, oh, I'm gonna feel hurt when you're not here.
So I think,
Because
uh,
I look at it in the way that if it's somebody who I care for, like truly care for their friendship and I love them as a person, I'm gonna sit the fuck down and talk to them. If it's someone that is just whatever to me, then fuck it, we're friends, whatever. You're gone. That's
Well,
it.
and I think like when it's somebody like, when it's somebody that you care about that does something dirty, or something happens that your friendships are like kind of, like you're going your separate ways. For a guy, I would say it's the same thing. Like I think it goes more towards being an adult. It's the same thing. Like, yeah, this was my friend, my homie, whatever, but something happened, whether it was he messaged my girl or he stole from me or whatever. It's like whatever happened, it's like I think it's the same thing. You just want to get straight to the point, you know, and then it is what it is. Like for a guy, at least from my point of view, you know, I feel like
I
at the end of the day, I have more to worry about than losing
Losing
a
some.
good friendship.
yeah.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
get
so
that.
yeah,
Hmm,
so it's just kind of like
that's a
it
different
is what
perspective.
it is.
I definitely feel like mm, I definitely feel like men and women have very different perspectives when it comes to friendships.
I'm more
Um,
emotional than I thought.
yeah, I really feel like we have, and this is another thing that I wanna try to bring, I wanna do another little podcast and have like the guys do a podcast. So I was talking to, I know you met Joseph last time, so I was trying to have him do a guys podcast and then us do a women's podcast, which we're gonna do a women's podcast here soon, and then hopefully Joseph can hold together a men's podcast. But I'd really like to do something like that where we can kind of share the guy's perspective, the girl's perspective, and then afterwards come together and kind of share both sides and kind of. I feel like a lot of the times people don't take the time for the guys and the girls to kind of come to a whole and share both sides of it, just kind of like you said, even just relationships with a guy and a woman, it's very hard sometimes for the guy to understand the woman. I feel like it's hard for the woman to understand the guy. So I think it'd be kind of a good dialogue for the guys to kind of, speak about things that maybe guys relate to, and then the girls speak about things that we relate to as well, and then kind of come as a whole and try to figure out how we relate, if we even relate at all in anything about, about a certain topic. But at the same time, I definitely feel like we all have very different perspectives, but I think it'd be a really good dialogue for us to all kind of see the different sides, because even just about the relationships, I feel like we all have a different perspective, even though I feel like today's podcast was pretty good because I feel like we kind of touched on the little daddy issues quite a bit. I think we could all relate to that a little bit. So I think this was a pretty good podcast. But I think we're kind of running it quite long. But I appreciate you being out here, Damien, and for participating. We really appreciate all of your inputs, and I hope that you participate in the guys podcast that we have coming up soon.
Yeah, for sure. I was like kind of preparing myself for a lot
Right?
more
No, yeah, for
questions.
sure. I'll definitely let you know ahead of time for the guys podcast so you can be prepared.
No, I was
And
saying
then
I was kind of preparing myself for a lot of questions from you guys, and I think I'm the only guy
uh
in here.
you know what?
So
We'll have a million
Dang it, the girls over.
hey, the next time we're gonna have a million questions, so just wait for it.
I can name 10 of them right now. You want to answer them? How do you approach somebody when you have some shit to say to them? When you have, we're not ending this yet. I'm sorry.
I trust me, I could go on and on, man. I'll talk forever. It don't bother me any.
We're actually if you're interested, so we're gonna at the end of the month, so at the end of October, I'm letting you guys know now. Hey, so at the end of October, we're trying to do like an in-person podcast. So
No, Oktoberfest.
No, Oktoberfest already happened. Anyway, so we're wanting to do a podcast where we're all in person. So whoever wants to participate, like yeah.
All month of October.
Yeah. So I know these girls are here in person, but we want to try to do like a whole one where we're all in person, and then we can all kind of participate just in a big kind of group chat type of thing. You know, like the 70s show. Have you guys ever watched the 70s show?
Yup.
Yeah, you know how they go in a circle and shit. That's what we're gonna do.
You watched that? Oh, wait, no.
All right. I have to cut this out because it's getting super long. But I appreciate everybody. I appreciate you, Damien. You're a real one. Honestly, I appreciate you so much. You have no idea how much we appreciate you. It's really dope that you're able to come out here and participate. I love it. The participation. And honestly, all your inputs have been like great. So keep it up. I hope that you keep participating in every single one of our podcasts because we're gonna make you a regular on here. We're gonna make your own name tag and everything.
Yeah, for sure. I'll try. I mean, like I said, it's hard with kids sometimes, but
Oh yeah, for sure.
for sure
I
I'll
think
try.
we're gonna try to maintain Thursdays as open discussion. So Thursdays, we're gonna keep it open for just anybody to join. So yeah, if you have anybody else is interested in joining, they can definitely. We'll be sending out the link early, and people can join in. So
Sounds good.
all right. Well, thank you. Have a good night. We appreciate you all.
Have a good night, guys.
All right. Good night. See you.